If you have a few months for the PLE, here's the exact plan I followed that helped me rank top 9. Assalamualaikum. I am Dr. Naeem. I recently placed top 9 in the PLE and received an academic achievement award in my school, Ateneo de Zamboanga School of Medicine. I'm sharing what actually helped me, not necessarily completely theory, but practical steps that maybe you can copy. So again, starting disclaimer. Now, this is no means the one and only way you can pass the PLE. I'm just showing you what I did. Maybe it is right, and some may say maybe inefficient, etc., whatever. But this is how I did it, and maybe, inshallah, if it can help you, then very good. So the first thing you have to do, guys, is to pick one source of truth. So whichever review center you would choose, trust that they will provide to you the needed information and the body of knowledge for you to pass. The moment you have now your so-called source of truth, a question was raised: should I read the big books or should I just go into the reviewers? My honest opinion on that is no need. The moment you open big books, let's say you open Robbins for pathology, when you read through the chapters, you have to understand that your brain is not necessarily like a sponge. That every single thing you just read it out, then it'll be absorbed. No. When you read the big books, there is a massive amount of information that your body does not necessarily know which to retain. The thing good about the reviewers is that what is present to you, those are the most important information concerning that specific disease. Let's give you an example. If you're talking about lung carcinoma or let's say pancreatic carcinoma, if you open Robbins, there'll be several description of what is pancreatic cancer and the several tumor markers that is regarding pancreatic carcinoma. But when you look at the reviewers, there is one main tumor marker that you must remember, which is CA19-9. So from there, you don't have to remember every single tumor marker that may relate to pancreatic carcinoma. So that's what I'm saying, that if you open the big books, there'll be so much information for that one subject that you won't be able to retain every single thing. Because honestly speaking, at the start of my review, I just before I started to really review, I opened Robbins pathology because accordingly that's one of the hardest subjects during the PLE. So when I open Robbins, I read maybe the first few chapters. The moment I go into my review, the proper review season, I'm telling you, I have forgotten, if not almost 90% of what I have read. Because why? The body information is so much, the body does not know what information from there to retain. So if you would ask me, Doc, should I read the big books or should I just go into the reviewers? I will tell you this. Go into the reviewers or not. If you have the time, if you want further elaboration on what you are studying or further explanation, go to the big books. If you have a big book and that big book has 1,000 pages, now you go to a reviewer which has 100 pages, more focused. The 1,000 pages is more elaborative, more discussions, more explanations. That big book of 1,000 pages, you may be only able to read it once. The reviewers of 100 pages, the same amount of time you will read the big books, you can read the reviewers 10 times more because there's only 100 pages. And the thing is this, guys, repetition is king. Now, the way I approached it, guys, was I look at the reviewer and I divided the reviewer subject by the number of days I have for that specific subject. Example, let's say biochemistry. The reviewer is about 110 to let's say 150. It depends on the review center. It means I will divide 100 divided by 10 days. So it means per day, I should be able to read 10 pages per day. The moment you do things like that, guys, you will try to break down something big into smaller pieces. You'll be able to realize that smaller goals or smaller objectives leading to a bigger goal. Ganyan ang isip mo when you're going into, especially when you're studying for the boards. So example, 100 pages, I have to read 10 pages per day in 10 days. Okay, so easy, huh? 10 pages per day. Kaya naman, kaya talaga. I don't have to worry. Sometimes I'll go beyond that. If I have, example, 7 days and I have a number of pages to read, let's say I have to read per day 20 pages and I finish 20 pages in the afternoon. By the afternoon, I will increase maybe 5 more, etc. So ganyan, smaller objectives leading to a bigger goal. Now, if you guys would want for me to show you how I actually studied the handouts, like when I opened the handout, how I approached it, how I use different techniques to hold retention for that subject, but when I go back to repeat it again to the so-called rereading, I retain it better. Want me to make a video of that where I really show you, just comment below And if you like the video already, just hit the thumbs up down and comment, just show me, but I will know how much of you would want that. The next one is we have to understand the concept of 80-20. And what does it actually mean? The 80-20 rule focuses on the must-knows, the high yields, common pharmacological drugs, common procedures, etc. Remember, 80% of the questions comes from 20% of the topics. So that's why I'm a firm believer that it's okay to read the reviewers muna. If you have the time, and believe me, you would not have the time, go towards the big books. Because if you read the big books, example, you started earlier, 1 year earlier, you start reading the big books. The moment your review season comes again, or you're really reviewing, you will forget everything. Not everything naman, but majority of the time, 75% or more, you will forget. Because that involves the forgetting curve. Before I would go into the study schedule, I would like just to give you a rundown of the stages of learning. First stage is what we call as encoding. That is when you first take in the information. You look at the reviewer, you'll read what is on the information in your paper, and you will try it now to incorporate it inside your brain. Essentially, you are transforming what is written into data inside your brain. Next, a new transfer. Your brain will organize, will connect the different dots, will bring concepts from here, from there, and then they'll try to combine it. You'll connect to what you already know, right? So this is why they say understanding beats memorization. But guys, the board exam memorization is part of it. You cannot deny that. You must also know how to memorize. The last one is, of course, the recall or retention. This is one. This is where we try to retrieve the information that we have encoded, that we were able to transfer or we able to organize into one and to connect the dots. And this will help your memory become stronger. But the fact is this: retention is difficult. So here's the catch. Without reviewing the materials you read before, your memory fades fast. In fact, this is what we call as the Ebbinghaus retention curve. It was developed by a German psychologist known as Hermann Ebbinghaus in, I believe, the late 19th century. And through his experiments, he saw that memory retention declines rapidly after you learn. Hence, we must do strategies that prevents us from forgetting. Sayang talaga, guys. You studied for so long and then you just forget it. Parang you really feel bad, no? So the way we address this curve is the spaced repetition. Okay, let me show you how we use spaced repetition. So before we go further, I would just like to show you this curve, no, it's known as the Ebbinghaus curve. As you can see from the curve, once you learn something already, 20 minutes later, you'll only retain about 58%. And as time passed, 1 hour, 9 hours, 1 day, 2 days, 6 days, by 6 days, you only retain 25% of what you learn. Parang sayang talaga, you feel really bad. Like, 6 days lang, then I forget. Grabe talaga man. That's how our brain works. And we must do something to able to manipulate, not really manipulate, but just, to try to get ahead of the curve. So to do this, we must have something called as spaced repetition. So in spaced repetition, this is the image when we talk about spaced repetition. As we can see here, the typical forgetting curve, no, of when we newly learn an information is that by the Ebbinghaus curve, by 6 days, we only retain about 20%. So what we do, we space repetition, means that we space out when we repeat that specific or review that specific subject. So using this, I was able to come up with my own schedule. This is the schedule I use. So I just re-edited it to make it into the next month in November. So what I did was, example, now you have your study materials. You divided it by different days. So in this schedule, I did it by 7 days. So one subject, example, biochemistry. So biochemistry, I took it for 7 days. For example, if the amount of pages you have to study is about 140 pages, divide by 7 days, you just have to read 20 pages per day. And more, what I do is that I divided that as well. So example, if I have 20 pages per day and I will study, let's say 10 hours, most times I really studied 10 to 12 hours. Sometimes just 10 if I feel really tired. So 10 hours, so I have to read 2 pages per hour. No, 2 pages per hour. Then in 7 days, I will focus on that. I will study, read through the materials. Then at the last day, I can do practice test. That is one of the most important things I did. Practice test, practice test, practice test. That's why even during my scheduling, when I study, I really try to do as much practice test as I can. So, example for biochemistry, November 1 to November 7, I will read out the materials. Then, just before sleeping, at the end of the day, maybe 1 hour, no? After 10 hours of studying, 1 hour or 2 hour, I would do practice test.
So in the schedule, I put 100, at least 100 practice questions. You can do more. No, you can do more. Then next is anatomy. Anatomy, I gave you a little bit more because it was, I felt I was so weak in anatomy. So that's it. That's the beauty of it, guys. Adjust your schedule to the subjects that you are going to study. So if you're good at one subject and you know you're good at it, you can decrease by a day. So maybe during your med school, you are really good at biochemistry. You just need maybe 5 days to review. Sige na, go for 5 days. Ganyan. So at the end of the anatomy, again, I gave it 10 days. So I did another practice test. After I finished my anatomy, I went back to biochemistry. But this time, guys, remember this. You're not going to reread. Passively reading will not help you retain the information. What you have to do is know something called as active recall. So I think part of the video that I'll be making on how I really studied, like when I show you the materials, I'll also include that how I reread the materials. So at the end of that, I did another 100 practice questions. Next, I go to another subject that is microbiology, again for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, I did 100 practice questions. Then again, went back to studying anatomy. So at this time, this is the schedule. After reviewing anatomy, another 100 practice questions. Then I went to next subject, physiology. At the end, 100 practice questions. Then I went back to microbiology. And at the end of that, 100 practice questions. Went to legal med, 100 practice questions at the end. Then I went to review physiology again, ganyan. So hanggang you finish all the 12 subjects. So this you can adjust depending on your schedule and how many days you have. But it's important to remember that spaced repetition and active recall, ito dalawa, you have to focus on. So that's what I did, active recall and spaced repetition. Guys, so that's the end of the video. So in the next video, I do not want to make it too long, and apologies if it takes a lot of time because I really do not know how to edit, etc. like that. So, but in the next video, I'll be reading each of your questions. Specifically, I will try to tackle each of them. But I believe when I look through the questions, majority of them were about my schedule. So, ganyan. So that's why I made this video specifically for the schedule. So now, again, tips, guys. Remember, this is not be all and end all of how you study for the PLE. You must adjust to your own study style. um, I will show you how I really studied maybe in the next video, right? And if you guys really want that, you can just comment, show me, so that I will show you how I specifically studied. Like, okay, when I read the material, what was going through my mind, how I approach each different topics. Because iba siya, guys. When you look at a specific topic or a specific material, either it be a paragraph or a table, there's a different way of approaching it, especially if it's for the PLE or any major exam. But for the next video, I will be reading each of your questions. So yes, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.